Yes, it's time to do business again. Welcome to Business Incorporated. 25 minutes of going around the world of business. Here's what we have prepared for you. In South Africa, the country gets $925 million World Bank funding, and it's to revive cities. And Senegal Eurobond slides sharply on restructuring concerns. Goods from Egypt are now exempt from China's customs duties. Welcome to the program. I'm Ini John Meko, and we start off from the global oil space. Prices rose on Monday on optimism that the U.S. government shutdown could end soon and lift demand in the world's top oil consumer, offsetting concerns about rising supplies globally. As for Brent, crude futures rose 0.94% from what we had earlier today to $64.22. WTI more than 1%. So in the morning, we had this about 0.9%. And we know, of course, this is directly impacted by sentiment around the United States crude. That's what WTI is. So it's at $60.38 a barrel. The U.S. Senate on Sunday moved on a measure that's aimed at reopening the government and ending a now 40-day shutdown that has sidelined federal workers, delayed food aid, and snared air travel. Analysts are concerned about any impact from the flight cancellations on U.S. jet fuel demand. Airlines cancelled more than 2,800 U.S. flights and delayed more than 10,200 on Sunday. That's the worst day for disruptions since the start of this U.S. government shutdown. Gold prices rose more than 1% today, buoyed by expectations of another Federal Reserve interest rate cut in December and a slew of weak economic data that has raised global slowdown worries. So we see gold, spot gold, went up almost 2%, 1.95%, back to 4,000, but not up to the 4,200, which is the record high that we've recorded so far. So $4,087.90 per ounce. U.S. gold is 1.30% up, $4,062.40 per ounce. Spot silver, 3.45% up, and that's $49.80 per ounce. Platinum is 2.5% in the green, $1,587.90. Palladium, 2.27% in the green. No wonder Nigeria's Commodities Exchange is now preaching the message of investing in gold. And I believe when that has materialized, a lot of individuals would be interested in it. We move over to Senegal, where a sovereign debt suffered its steepest decline on record as investor confidence wavered amid tense discussions with the International Monetary Fund and the looming possibility of debt restructuring. The country's euro-dominated bond maturing in 2033 dropped to around 68.06 cents on the euro, sending yields soaring into the mid-13% range after credit negotiations stalled. The sell-off comes amid a suspended $1.8 billion IMF program and a debt-to-GDP ratio estimated by IMF staff at approximately 132%. IMF officials have raised concerns over the government's revenue growth projections and flagged substantial fiscal risks connected to this. The Central Bank of Egypt has increased its estimate for Egypt's external debt service in 2026 by $1.3 billion, bringing the total to $29.18 billion. That's up from $27.87 billion previously, according to the CBE's latest external position of the Egyptian economy report. The report notes that principal repayments are expected to reach $23.79 billion, an increase of $1.1 billion, while interest payments are projected to rise by $250 million to $5.4 billion. The CBE has attributed the overall increase mainly to a $6.8 billion rise in principal repayments, while interest payments fell by about $500 million during the same period. Egypt's external debt to GDP ratio climbed to 44.5% by the end of March 2025. And still in Egypt, the Chinese ambassador to Cairo has said that the Chinese government issued a decree exempting Egyptian goods from customs duties upon entry into the Chinese market. The move seeks to promote further high-quality Egyptian products and the volume of trade between the two sides, with the minister saying that China has been Egypt's largest trading partner for 13 consecutive years. During the Egyptian-Chinese Investment Forum, he emphasized the depth of economic relations between the two countries and the agreement to enhance cooperation across various investment and industrial sectors. In South Africa, World Bank has approved $925 million loan to South Africa, and it supports a 6-year urban renewal initiative that's aimed at rehabilitating major cities grappling with deteriorating infrastructure and failing service delivery. The funding will back the National Metro Services Trading Program, which links municipal performance in sectors such as water, power, and waste management to financial rewards, a first-of-its-kind performance-based model in the country. The program targets 8 metropolitan areas, including Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban, Pretoria, East London, and a whole lot more. Let's head to the markets now, see what the numbers look like intraday. We know last week was a very red one for the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Well, it does seem like that sentiment continues intraday. Today, the market lost or went down 0.33%. It's still holding on to 149,000 level, but it's gone down. The all share is in the red at 0.33%. Johannesburg, where we just talked about, is however on the flip side. They're back to the 110,000 level at 110,946.40. It's gone up almost 2% at intraday. Egypt is, however, on a negative 0.63% in the red for the all share at 40,564.57. Kenya closed on Friday red 1.59% at 192,100 level. Moving to the Middle East now, it's mostly red. Yeah, for the Middle East at intraday. From Dubai, where we see down 0.18%. Abu Dhabi is also down 0.4%. Saudi is also down 0.2%. Qatar is the only one that escaped that red color at intraday, 0.47% in the green. Then we move to the United States and saw our features this morning for them up 0.16%. That's for the Dow Jones. The S&P is also green, but Nasdaq is in the red, down 0.21% for the features. We'll see what happens when the market opens proper. Of course, the talks around the possibility of reopening of the government shutdown, that is a major one. Investors are continuing to measure or to monitor lawmakers' negotiation to pass that federal funding bill that would end the shutdown. It's a bipartisan deal being debated in the Senate and would reopen the government into January and reverse some of the recent mass federal layoffs, which we've heard President Trump talk about. People are saying that that enough Democratic senators had agreed to vote for the deal to clear a 60 votes minimum threshold. So we'll follow up in the coming days and see how that ends. Moving over to Asia now, where market has closed, we see major markets there traded higher at the close of trade for Asia. 1.26 positive for Nikkei, Kospi more than 3% positive, the Hang Seng 1.55 positive. We see other parts of the markets now. All right, so headline consumer inflation was at 0.2% year-on-year compared to expectations. That's for China, some of the drivers of it. Headline inflation was at 0.2% compared to expectation of zero growth from economists. Wholesale inflation also saw a softer than expected drop of 2.1 year-on-year against the expected 2.2 decline. And so those are part of the drivers that happened over the weekend in China. Let's head to Europe now and see what investors are doing as intraday. Last joins us to give us updates from the Hellas. Good afternoon. What are investors doing?
Yeah, good afternoon, Ini. I see you have all the green lights on here in Asia, and I'm adding some green to your wall for the European markets. We have London up 1%, we have Paris and Madrid up 1.5%, and the DAX in Frankfurt actually outpacing them all, and that is something we don't see every day. The DAX currently up 1.8%, making this the strongest market here on the continent. But it is not because we have great news here. It is basically because of the news from the United States with that shutdown ending. That has, of course, fueled Asian markets. It is coming here now. And most likely, I would assume we're going to see U.S. markets later in the day a bit higher as well. So that is what's going on here. Everybody's quite happy with the market, but it's mostly because of what we're hearing from America.
Yeah, America controls the world. But we also hear you're trying to be less dependent on China.
Yeah, certainly. You know, Ini, we've talked about it on and off here a couple of times. Mostly we're talking about resources, and the German government has now put together a resource fund. And I want to say not a day too soon, because, you know, the scarcity of resources here in Germany has been, I would say, one of the biggest and most discussed problems for the economy as of late. For years, not many people here have even paid that much attention to the problem. They didn't even realize where certain resources were mined or refined, because we just always got them, and often we got them on the cheap, especially those resources that we sourced from China, among them, of course, rare earth elements and such. But then we saw these recent trade troubles, mostly between the US and China. We saw how the power struggle between these two countries had a terrible impact on Germany and even on Europe, for that matter. Things, of course, recently got especially dicey when China halted exports of rare earth elements, and when many companies in the auto industry even thought that they would have no alternatives anymore and might be forced to halt production. So the government now here in Berlin was very eager to find a way to become less dependent on one big supplier, and that is why they put that fund together.
So do we know how much this fund is, and perhaps the priority that will be given to it, areas of priority?
Yeah, Ini, you know, here's the thing. At 1 billion euros, there's some money in the fund, but it's not that overwhelming at this point. But it is a start, and money from that fund is specifically reserved to support projects where companies either mine for resources in Germany. There's one project right now by a company called Vulcan Energy, and they're working on extracting lithium along the Rhine River. That is one of the biggest German and European waterways. Or the fund will also support mining and extraction efforts in other countries. Currently, there are 2 projects in Canada and in Australia. Now, why does the German government get involved there? That is simple, because any mining or later on refining effort will be costly, and getting resources that way will cost German companies more than just getting them from China like they used to. So the government wants to help them, wants to carry some of the burden and encourage those companies to go through with their own projects, so as to open up new supplies that won't be dependent on goodwill from Beijing or otherwise be subject to geopolitical shenanigans.
All right, Lars, thank you so much for giving us that update, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Ini. You too.
All right, now let's go to the crypto space. I wonder if we can have the numbers to see how much Bitcoin is going for at this time. Yeah, there we have it. So it's looking a bit better compared to what we left off here on Friday. We see it's gained more than 3.5% in 24 hours. But on Friday, we had about 104,000, but now it's about 106,000. So it's a good one, especially, I guess, a lot of green or positive sentiment coming from that possibility of a shutdown. However, Ethereum hasn't recovered that 4,000 level, unfortunately, but it's still a good time, perhaps, if you want to join in there. It might be a Christmas gift for yourself. BNB, Solana, a lot of greens is what we have. Even Cardano has recovered. But our focus this afternoon is going to be on the ecosystem, the blockchain ecosystem for Nigeria. And I have joining me right here in the studio, Oluchi Oko. Oluchi Oko is the head of operations of SWI Nigeria. Oluchi, you're welcome to the program. And she's not alone. She has Goodness Ukeje. Goodness Ukeje is the lead developer tutor of SWI Nigeria. You're welcome to the program. Okay, so, I mean, the issue of stable coins especially seems to be filling the atmosphere, not just in Nigeria, in Africa. We've seen Kenya. They have a structured law now, you know, to direct it. When you look at adoption, blockchain and all the cryptocurrency, with all the suspicion that goes around it, how would you rate adoption in Nigeria so far?
So I think the adoption rate in Nigeria is really, really high. It is fast, especially...
Do you have a percentage? Have you guys found a percentage?
No, not yet.
Okay.
But we see the adoption every day. Right. A lot of people are gaining adoption. They are learning about blockchain, the terminologies. We see it growing every day. And a lot of blockchains actually are gaining interest in Nigeria. SWI Blockchain, for example, recently established a hub here in Nigeria where they teach developers, creators, students, builders. They teach them every single day about blockchain, how to build, especially using the SWI blockchain technology.
But goodness, the skepticism, the distrust that surrounds digital currency and digital assets, can we deal with it?
Yeah, I think generally we can actually do with it. I think it's basically been a case of over the last 5 years, there's been this on and off thing with the government and their policies on cryptocurrencies in general. But I think it's becoming a whole lot more friendly due to the fact that there are now regulations going forward, right? And the government has also been trying to be more transparent about cryptocurrencies in general. So yeah, I think we can definitely do with it.
Yeah, but do you have this, I mean, can we target the rural communities, for instance? We have a major number of our population there. Can we include them in this conversation? A lot of people talk about, we want to talk about government policies now, you should do it in local dialects and all of that. Do we have something like that to bring in those who are not elites and in the urban cities?
Yeah, like Oluchi said, blockchain is actually very interested in Nigeria. And on the SWI front, we actually have like workshops all around the country with DeFi.
Do you do it in local dialects? You do it in local dialects? That's so interesting.
We have
so what's blockchain in a local dialect?
Yeah, so we have trained a lot of developers, and we have developers, especially in the north, that actually teach in Hausa.
How do you teach them, really? I'm curious.
It's basically, you know, simplifying the terms and translating it and sharing out the documents to them so that they can study and read up on their own. We also organize the workshop where they get to learn live.
That's interesting, really. And what has the response been like?
The response is amazing. A lot
because
of
you tell them that they will make money, yeah? If they don't make that money, you're in trouble.
Yes, the money aspect is there, but I see that a lot of Nigerians actually want to grow. They want to develop themselves. And then we give them that platform. You know, education, knowledge is power. So we basically provide them with that knowledge. And then whatever it is they want to do with it, maybe make money, it becomes easier, right? When you have those skills, it becomes easier to actually apply yourself in the industry and make money.
So goodness, what lessons can we learn? I talked about Kenya. They have their own, I mean, they just recently, I think it was last week, adjusted their law. You know, so now they don't charge transactions. They charge those who are using the platform. So it allows more people to use the platform to come on for transactions. What lessons can we learn as a country from our peers?
I think it's a classic case of now that we know that blockchains are going to be in the future, we actually now start from the grassroots to start teaching people about these things, right? So things like workshops and then generally every single application that blockchains are going to bring in, we can definitely start from the grassroots to start teaching that. Definitely, we've seen how blockchains are definitely going to be part of the future with even platforms like Flutterwave, which is the Nigerian brand, adopting cryptocurrencies, right? So generally, it's a case of we need to take other countries going to the grassroots and then bring it to our own side and do the same thing, so that in, say, 5 years, 10 years, people actually conversant with cryptocurrencies and blockchains in their everyday life.
Oluchi, are there specific lessons we can learn, perhaps from their laws? Ghana, I know they are also doing good.
So one of the most important lessons is collaboration. I feel like you cannot grow on your own and you cannot do it on your own. A lot of these countries and blockchains need to collaborate. They need to spread awareness. They need to teach. They need to educate so that everyone is aware. When you know what it is that you are doing, when you have the knowledge, it is easier to scale, and regulations can come in place when all parties understand what blockchain, the future that blockchain shows to everyone. Like, there is a wealth of possibilities with blockchains.
So we've had governments and government agencies talk about digital assets, the recognition of it, but would you say we're doing enough for our stage?
In my opinion, I don't think we're doing enough. I think everyone needs to wake up to the possibilities that all of these present, and actually look for ways and laws and regulations that help to, you know, promote this. A lot of people are scared because they feel like, oh, the regulations are going to come, the law is going to come for them, oh, this is illegal. And so I feel like when we have these clear rules stated, it will help make things easier.
What about you? Is there any law you think that perhaps could accelerate things, build more trust? Because trust is a major one. A lot of times we hear of the news of fraud that's been carried out on the blockchain and all of that. So it puts a lot of fear in people's mind. Of course, anything that's new will always, you know. So is there any law or step you think the regulators can embrace at this time?
Yeah, I think the country needs a very, very clear law once again. And this time around, we saw the tax system on cryptocurrencies, but if we could also get something for regulations and regulating even offshore bodies that come into this country to do things around blockchains, that would be very, very cool. So it should be clearly stipulated on how they should actually operate. We've seen that most blockchains actually operate with foundations and then step into the country. So it's actually very,
What do you mean they operate with foundations?
Like more so, they use like an NGO type of system, non-profit foundations to enter countries and then teach. So like it would be very cool if they had exact measures and exact things that you're supposed to do and then not do, so that it's easier for them to actually operate in the country and help people in this country step forward.
And I hear small businesses are actually embracing stablecoin. Have you had any transaction or heard of it or seen?
Yes, of course. So like I mentioned earlier, we have the SWE Hub here in Lagos, Nigeria, where we teach people. So we actually, you know, utilize funds in keeping the hub running. So we do have agencies and small business that we interact with that require...
And they use stablecoins for their transactions?
We pay them in USDC. So I feel like with the education and the blockchain wave coming in, I feel like a lot more small businesses will be open to the idea of using stablecoins.
What do you see, goodness, say in the next 5 years, following this trend, blockchain and all the digital asset conversations?
Yeah, so we saw the CBDCs that came out from Nigeria, and we also seen like some local stablecoins coming up, CNG and the rest.
E-Naira hasn't moved though.
Yeah, so I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, so, please go ahead.
So generally, if the future is going to be fully digital, I think there's going to be a point where the Nigerian Naira actually has a very, very robust stablecoin that people use daily across all different blockchains, right?
What's the possibility of having a stablecoin to the Naira? Because that's also one conversation that seems to be taken up.
Yeah, I think it's something that would definitely have to do. We've seen the US actually create a framework for stablecoins, and the thing about stablecoins is how fast they accelerate transactions. And so I think Nigeria is definitely going to catch up to that and then help people to do transactions better.
All right, thank you so much, gentleman and lady, for coming on the program today. Oluchi Oko, Head of Operations, SWE Nigeria, and Goodness KJ, Lead Developer Tutor, SWE Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that's it for the program. A stablecoin coming your way, that's what they say. Do you trust it enough? Is the government doing enough, you know, to win the trust of Nigerians to adopt some of this? These are the questions and the conversations that will be coming up in the next few days and seeing what the future holds. Well, that's it on Business Incorporated. Thank you so much for being a part of this Monday edition. We certainly do have other episodes coming your way this week, and we promise that we will make it worth your while from tomorrow. But tonight, I'll give you the stock market report. Perhaps there'll be a little bit of recovery. Investors will have mercy on these bleeding markets. I hope to have a green number or green color. I'm John McCall. Talk to you later.